Alright guys, so in this video, I'm going to be discussing the abandoned Star Wars movie set located in Tunisia. This was Luke Skywalker's home planet, the desert planet, Tatooine. And this was abandoned in the late 1900s, and it's been abandoned ever since. There were actually two different sets built, a bigger one and a smaller one. The smaller one was overtaken by sand dunes, and they're still waiting for it to reemerge, but there you can see the bigger one. Considering its location, when it comes to it being a tourist attraction, it is very hard to reach, but you can see the desert Star Wars themed movie sets. I mean, what else are you gonna do with sets like that? I saw an interesting photo. It looked like they incorporated the bathrooms into the set. It was like they were hiding the bathrooms in the back, and you can kind of see the front of the building was shaped to model the desert and kind of like the idea of a desert planet within Star Wars. After the sets went abandoned in the 1990s, there was the idea to possibly renovate them in 2005 as a tourist attraction, but unfortunately, due to a conflict within Tunisia, that never happened. Now, many of the structures that were originally used for the films have been completely torn apart. However, there are still several that do remain. They just never thought to clean it up. I remember when I was younger seeing a photo on what formerly was Twitter, photo of the abandoned set probably like 7 or 8 years ago. Apparently, a lot of tourists went there around 2010 to look at it, and that was really one of the last times we have some real documented photos. However, I mean, technically you can go there. It's just in the middle of just a random desert in Tunisia. That's where the filming location was. Another famous abandoned movie set comes from Lord of the Rings. It is the Hobbit Holes. These are located in a village in New Zealand, and now the village where the filming was done, it's been converted to a farm, and it's been overtaken by sheep. Beautiful little houses, little cubby holes. I like the exterior design of them. But yeah, now apparently sheep go inside and use these as shelter and as their home. A lot of them have been completely hollowed out since the filming, obviously. Another abandoned movie set was Titanic, the 1997 blockbuster film, probably one of the top 5 most famous movies in recent memory. You know, a lot of people wondered, when it comes to the actual scale replica, they built it about 90% of the full-scale real RMS Titanic. Why wouldn't they turn that into some type of museum? Well, the issue is it was completely hollowed out because they had to get shots for when the ship started to sink. And obviously in the 1990s, using CGI would have been terrible. That's why the movie turned out so amazing. As you start to see the ship dip below the water, that is a real, almost fully replicated size Titanic, and it's hollowed out, so it was built with wood. When it began to sink and they began to do that, they had to film those scenes 8, 10, 15, 20 times. The wood got really damp, it got weak, and they had to completely scrap the actual Titanic movie set. And there were some crazy photos of it after it was done being used, and you can just see the side of it completely hollowed out, looking decrepit, looking abandoned. When it comes to the rooms, many of the rooms that they used for Titanic were in a completely different filming location from the hollowed out ship itself, obviously considering they used like this massive, almost pool right next to a large body of water to film the thing. A few of the filming rooms, like some of the first class rooms, were saved, and they are on display at different Titanic museums. However, the Grand Staircase didn't survive. And a little fun fact about the Grand Staircase, as they were sinking the thing, the stairs completely detached from the staircase and floated to the top. That's kind of the expectation on what happened in real life, because if you stare down the Grand Staircase, there is nothing there. And it always confused me as a kid when they were like, oh, this is the Grand Staircase, and you look at it and there's nothing there. And when I was younger, I could never put 2 and 2 together that the entirety of the staircase was completely ripped out, probably because it was wood as the Titanic sank to the ocean floor. You know, it's funny considering not only did the 1997 Titanic set not survive, the Raise the Titanic 1980s film, they had a model of the Titanic. The film's premise was that they raised the ship, and this was before it was confirmed that the ship split in two, so they raised it all together. And the model, which was fairly big, went completely abandoned. I will say that film has a really interesting shot, kind of just coincidental. when they're towing the Titanic, after they raised it, when they're towing it into New York City, you can see the Twin Towers in the background with the Titanic in the foreground. It's a pretty crazy just image to look at, but that movie was not received very well, and obviously it's completely inaccurate, but technically it does include an abandoned movie set prop with the old Titanic. They were able to find it years later, just randomly laying around with a bunch of weeds around it. Pretty crazy. Another abandoned movie set would be the Pirates of the Caribbean's Port Royal, located in St. Vincent. Not much of this movie set remains. The docks are completely abandoned and decayed, but there are still a few movie props that remain and linger around. What a very beautiful looking place there. Another abandoned movie set location was the Hunger Games District 12, which was located in North Carolina. Now, before they moved in, this small town was already abandoned, but it made for the perfect backdrop with a dystopian vibe and feel, and it did attract many visitors to the abandoned small town, although that since has died down. Very interesting to see the filming location there. The Hunger Games being filmed in North Carolina. It's just funny to think about. And then another abandoned location. This is located in Louisville, Kentucky. It's known as one of the most haunted hospitals in the U.S. It was used in a 2004 horror movie, The Death Tunnel, and it is completely abandoned at this point. But that is going to do it for this video on abandoned famous movie sets. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.